what America was and what it can become. This is Liberty Town Hall.
Thank you for joining us here today on Liberty Town Hall. Gregg and I have a couple interesting interviews to go over today. One is very important. It's the Second Amendment, Gregg. You interview someone that's blind, Mark Rybicki, and he's got a gun. He's carrying a gun out there on our streets. Should a blind man really have a gun?
Glenn, Mark is legally blind. He can see about 5 feet in distance under normal conditions and can't see well there, can basically see a shape. Now that, pointing out to somebody who can legally qualify for a concealed weapons permit, is pretty impressive. I can't wait to let you hear this story today.
The other segment we have is on medical bills, Gregg. Our medical bills are out of control. So I had a chance to sit down and pull a couple medical bills together, and I have an interesting segment coming up on just where our uninsured costs are heading in America. We'll be right back with more Liberty Town Hall.
United States senators create laws that affect all Americans. In Michigan, the old parties are running Senate candidates who will sink you into endless debt, embark on costly foreign crusades, and violate your freedom. These policies have created the current economic depression. I'm Scotty Bowman, and I pledge to end deficit spending, restore the Constitution, and put your freedom first. Help me fight for you by making a contribution at scottybowman.org. I'm Scotty Bowman, candidate for United States Senate, and I've approved this advertisement.
This is Liberty Town Hall. I'm talking with Mark Rybicki right now. Mark is a computer analyst. And also, Mark is somebody who really believes in the Second Amendment. Let me explain how. Mark actually went out, first off I better explain, Mark is blind. Not totally blind, but he's legally blind. But give us a big 30-second synopsis. How well can you see at all, Mark?
On a good day I can see about 5 feet. And that's without detail. It's shadow, not even shadow, it's shape. And depending on contrast, it depends on how well I can see that shape. And most of the time, it's not real good.
So basically you can see that I'm a blob and that's about it.
I can see you're there, and that's about it.
Reason I say that is because Mark actually believes in the Second Amendment so much that even through his condition, he decided to get, as Michigan calls it, a concealed pistol license, CPL. Other states have other names for it, but Mark is allowed to carry weaponry concealed. Let me give you a quick look at it. That's what they look like, and we'll have Mark explain. You got to tell me, because I know you've had some people give you grief over it. What made you, as a legally blind man, can, as you described, can barely see much of anything, decide that you needed a CPL license?
Well, there was two things. One of my favorite radio stations that I listen to at night is NRA Radio, National Rifle Association Radio. It's really cool because I found out there's other blind people out there doing it. And I said, hey, I went to blind school. There was a hunting club. Why can't I do this? So I said, okay, let's test the waters and see what getting a CPO would be like, because I want to see how far the Second Amendment will or will not work. You know, because it says my right to it shall not be infringed. So prove it. You know, I'm going to push it, and I want to make sure that my right will not be infringed because of some stupid handicap.
Well, tell me, what was the first reaction when you walked in and said, hey, I'd like to apply for a permit? There had to be a few shocks at the beginning.
If there were, I couldn't tell.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. I couldn't tell. But what happened is they just treated me like everybody else, and they said, okay, here's your application. Bring it back with $125. Fill it out. Don't sign it, though. We'll have you sign it when you come back. And I said, okay. So I went back, and they had me sign it, and I signed it, and they just treated me like they would anybody else, which was very nice. It was refreshing.
Now, every state's different, but give us an example. Did you have to go through a course, any kind of written stuff? How did that work?
There is a course that you have to go through that is a good portion of a day. It's like 8 to 12 hours that you have to sit through. And having had prior law enforcement experience, it was not new to me.
What's your background, real quick, in law enforcement?
Well, in law enforcement, I was a reserve officer for the city of Hazelwood, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis, but it's pretty far out there. St. Louis is like a 50-mile radius, so that you can spend 2 hours just getting from one end of it to the other.
Yeah, as far as the metro area, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's very big. And I was on the outskirts of the fringe. And yes, I went through police academy and graduated first in my class. And I was having some visual problems then, and they told me that, you know, you're not going to be hired by anybody because your vision isn't good enough. And I was fine with that. But I still was first in my class. And I got 2 accommodations for disarming people.
Wow. So you're a big believer in the Second Amendment.
Oh yeah, yes, definitely. I think people need to have this amendment. I think they need to be able to protect themselves, especially in the world today and the way our country is falling apart. And you hear about more and more shootings every day. And what's the solution? Take away the gun? No. Protect yourself. Okay? That's what it's about. And as this country is falling apart, you're seeing more and more lawlessness. So it's in your own best interest to learn how to protect yourself. And that includes me too.
Just as a quick background, Mark got his CPL license in the state of Michigan, where he now lives.
Wasn't required in Missouri.
Well, there you go. Mark, do you think a lot of people ought to be getting involved in and get these? Because I've heard a lot of people say if you don't use your rights, you're going to lose them.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's why I wanted to be sure to try to exercise the right I had before it got taken away.
Did you have any grief from family or friends over doing this?
I had a little bit of grief with my father, who said, you know, this probably isn't a good idea. Don't you dare tell your mother. Don't tell your mother. And it's like, oh, good grief. Okay, don't tell my mother.
Does Mom know now?
Mom does know now, and she's fine with it. She's fine. But I grew up with guns all my life. My dad was an avid hunter and fisherman. He worked for the DNR. He worked on the Great Lakes. He worked on Lake Michigan mainly.
There'll be more to talk about soon. Stand by, more with Mark Rybicki. This is Liberty Town Hall.
Rose City Drug, your one-stop pharmacy, home health care, medical supplies, photo processing, and gift headquarters. The pharmacy department fills your prescriptions utilizing a state-of-the-art robotic system, lowering the time you wait with much higher accuracy, and your medication is never touched by human hands. The home health care and medical supplies department has a complete line of diabetic supplies and aids, including a full line of diabetic shoes. Rose City Drug, family-owned and operated for over 20 years, just south of the Rose City city limits, 2640 North M33.
It's Liberty Town Hall. Mark Rybicki is my guest. He has a concealed Michigan pistol license. That's this right here. But he's blind. If you're just joining us, Mark is a computer analyst, which I've always wondered how you pull that off. But we could do a whole nother show on that as we go. We were talking about a blind guy getting a concealed pistol license. Tell me about a little more about some of the grief you got, because I know there was a few places and people who gave you some grief that you shouldn't be having this.
Yeah, I got some grief. I go to a men's Tuesday morning Bible study very early in the morning, and I just asked for somebody to take me to the range and help me to take my gun apart to clean it. And somehow it got turned into some big ballyhoo-hoo, and before I knew it, we were having a meeting the next week, all the men, and it turned into a thing where they went around the table saying why I shouldn't have it. Then our pastor decided, oh, it's time to have a vote on this. Should Mark have a gun, yes or no? And of course, everybody votes no. And he says, there you go. You know, you don't need a gun. You know, I'm a man. I don't have a gun. You know, what do I need a gun for? And I said, to protect yourself? He says, no, I think I'm okay. And I said, well, okay, whatever. But at that point, I just pretty much ignored him. And
Yeah, because your life is not a democracy, is it?
no, it's not ruled
Your
by
life is a personal dictatorship.
It's not
you
ruled
decide
by
what
a
you're
mob.
going to do.
That's correct. It's not ruled by a mob. Then the other interesting part was when I was in before the gun board getting my license, they waited to call me till the very end. And I knew why. I knew they were going to try to give me a little bit of a hard time. And they did. And they sat there and questioned me, well, why should we give one to you? You can't see. You're blind. And I said, because I have a Second Amendment right just like everybody else. And the sheriff said, baloney, don't give me that crap. And then after a little bit of more argument and telling them, you know, wait a minute here. You're violating my right, Mr. Sheriff. They kind of said all of a sudden, okay, you got it. Bye.
Don't give me that crap.
Don't give me that crap. That's a quote.
Wow.
That's a quote.
That's amazing. That is amazing. To sit there and think that somebody could talk about your rights, my rights, anything like that, in that kind of condescending tone, that's frustrating. That is very frustrating. You're obviously, Mark, or you wouldn't have got this, concerned about rights and liberties in this country right now. What do you think's happening with, are our rights being eroded? Are things fine overall and you're just a unique circumstance?
No. Our country is literally falling apart because we've lost our way. We've lost our way because we've lost the Constitution. We're not paying any attention to it. You know, I'm going to hit you with some phrases that have become, you know, I don't even know what to call them. But the phrases are, it's a living, breathing document. No, it's not. It's not relevant for today. Why not? Oh, because we've got all this new technology and everything's changed and everything's different and it's much different. Maybe it is technologically wise, it's different, but philosophically, no, it's still the same. And if we don't find these values, if we don't go back to these Judeo-Christian values that founded this country and got us our Constitution, that I believe was divinely inspired, if not divinely inspired, definitely had the divine hand of providence in it, we're in real trouble. It worked for 235 years. Why all of a sudden have we decided that it's not good enough anymore? I mean, people live the same way from the beginning of time till now. The only thing that's different is we communicate better, or we think we do.
You almost question if we communicate worse because of what we've been seeing in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like Thomas Jefferson said, you have to have a moral, virtuous people if you're going to have a democratic republic. Or don't have a democracy, that's mob rule. You know, we don't have a guy standing up and voting for me because one vote doesn't make any difference. That one vote that guy would have for me makes no difference. It's no different than me going and rioting because I want something, you know. But having this democratic republic says, hey, we're going to give you an equal opportunity to do something. And that's all I was asking for on this concealed permit was the right to be treated like everybody else and to have that equal opportunity to get it. And if I couldn't meet certain requirements, fine. But as far as I'm concerned, the Constitution says shall not be infringed when it comes to your Second Amendment right. So even if I have a handicap, so what? And as it turns out, I'm a pretty darn good shot.
Yeah, what did you have to shoot real fast?
I'm sorry?
You had a target to shoot.
Yes. The first target I shot at was a silhouette. And I had to...
What was the distance?
Probably about 25 feet, maybe. I couldn't see it at all.
And yet you were able to pull it off.
Well, here's what happened is
real quick, about 15 seconds.
He kind of gave me where it was. I pulled the gun. I had to fire 30 rounds altogether in rapid succession. doing different poses, different ways, and doing that, I put all 30 rounds into the target.
Amazing. Thanks, Mark Rybicki. I appreciate it. You're
you,
watching
Gregg.
Liberty Town Hall.
It's here, M33TV.com. Watch your favorite movies and shows on your computer or supported devices. M33TV.com finally makes it possible to affordably watch web TV and video on demand in crisp, high-definition color and sound. Get all your entertainment in one place. M33TV.com offers unparalleled choice, control, and quality in an easy-to-use package. Watch TV on your own terms. Watch M33TV.com.
The focus of the show is to try to bring back some common sense. Our national debt is skyrocketing out of control. Thus, the reason the federal government has used for adding the largest tax increase in the history of our country, the Affordable Health Care Act, was to cover the uninsured. After all, it is costing our local hospitals millions of dollars each year to provide services to the uninsured. After reviewing a couple of medical bills more closely, I can see where they're coming up with these costs. All you need to do is look at what the companies are charging for their services when it comes to the uninsured person walking into their local hospital for treatment. Let's start by taking a look at the differences in cost that the uninsured are required to pay compared to the insured for the exact same services. I pulled together two examples from Quest Diagnostics, the largest medical testing service holding 17% of a $40 billion a year industry. However, I'm sure this is pretty much the same on all your bills as well. So please take some time and look at your own bills. We will start with a small bill, only $23. However, if we look more close at the bill, it is actually $176. The difference is that special discount that is made with the insurance companies. Notice the actual amount Quest is collecting is $23.98. The uninsured person is actually charged $152 more. That is over 600% more for the exact same medical test. Let's look at another bill. This bill is a little bit more. It costs $304. Again, if we look closely, the bill is actually $1,926.99. Again, the difference is that special discount made with the insurance company. Again, notice the actual amount Quest is collecting is $304.52. The uninsured person is actually charged $1,622.47 more. That is over 500% more for the exact same medical test. That's correct. If you're an uninsured person, you will be charged more for the exact same services. The same people that cannot afford to purchase insurance, people between the ages of 18 and 30 trying to get a start in the world, get hit the hardest. So why is the company charging them so much more? The common answers are things like group rates and so on. Well, I'm willing to bet the answer is more like because the federal government is picking up the tab for the uninsured costs. With all the programs and agencies set up by the special interest groups, more commonly known as the insurance companies and medical labs in this case. Oh, let's not forget the huge tax write-offs they get for anything they don't collect. When I called and asked Quest about this, they pointed out that the discount is different between the different insurance companies. So I asked, what's the rate chart for the different companies? Maybe I want to change insurance companies. If I can get a better rate with another carrier, it makes sense. At that point, I was changed off to a voicemail system, and I'm still waiting for a call back. I'm sure I'll be waiting for a long time. If you would like to try and get some answers directly from Quest on this, please feel free to give them a call at the number they provide on their bills for answers. Regardless of who pays the bill, it must be billed at a fair rate. Medical insurance should be treated the same as any other insurance we purchase. Think about your car insurance. People purchase car insurance and hope they will never need to turn in a claim. Yet we think of our medical insurance as something we must use all the time. If people were billed more fairly, maybe more people would pay their bill directly and not rely on their insurance. After all, insurance would cost a lot less if we only used it as an insurance to protect us from the major medical issues. We would like to hear your thoughts on this topic. Please visit our website, libertytownhall.com, and leave us your comments. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. We'll be right back with more Liberty Town Hall.
Have fun with your photos at Rose City Drug. In the photo department, get fast processing and have fun by creating unique digital photo gifts on site or online. Save those precious memories at Rose City Drug, 2640 North M33 Rose City, or online.
Hope you enjoyed today's Liberty Town Hall, especially the interview I just had with Mark Rybicki. What a great man he is. Can legally not see much of anything. Legally he's considered blind, but yet he's an IT specialist, which means he repairs computers and works on systems, and at the same time is still able to legally and go through the proper hoops to be able to get his concealed weapon permit and can shoot accurately. He's an amazing man, Glenn. I wish more people would take advantage of their Second Amendment rights like he has.
Greg, I want to know why he has to have a permit to begin with. The Second Amendment very clearly says that your right to bear arms shall not be infringed. The federal government has lots of standards that says even asking someone to paint something a certain color or get a permit is an infringement or an unreasonable delay in expense. So why wouldn't it be unreasonable delay in expense if you have to get a permit for a concealed weapons permit when your Second Amendment very clearly says leave it alone?
Because we've allowed it to happen, Glenn. We have systematically let our rights be eroded in the Second Amendment area to allow the state to regulate us more so. They've changed it to state rules. States have come up with these kind of permits, and we've allowed it to happen without standing up and saying enough's enough.
Massachusetts doesn't require it, correct?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. I know there's one state out there that still had some common sense. It's New Hampshire, right?
That's exactly right.
Also our medical bills, Greg. Where I covered these two medical bills just as an example.
What a story that was.
We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that the taxpayer's getting stuck with, and the person that actually pays their bills goes into the hospital for treatment. They're getting hit with these bills. So the very people that can't afford insurance or the government picking up the tab for the cost that they get stuck with, it's costing us taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. And yet Quest Labs, one of the largest, reports over $750 million in profit in just 1 year.
We'll be talking more about that as time goes on. Remember our website, libertytownhall.com. It has all the information about the program. Also podcasts, which you can watch episodes just like this at your own convenience. Hope you'll join us next time. We appreciate you watching today. You've been watching Liberty Town Hall.
To suppose arms in the hands of citizens to be used at individual discretion, except in private self-defense, or by partial orders of towns, countries, or districts of a state, is to demolish every constitution and lay the laws prostrate, so that liberty can be enjoyed by no man. It is a dissolution of the government. The fundamental law of the militia is that it be created, directed, and commanded by the laws, and ever for the support of the laws. John Adams, A Defense of the Constitution of the United States, 1788.